Welcome to my awesome health journey. I am Brett Dupree, and today I'm going to talk about my inattentive ADHD diagnosis, mostly because it really put a lot of things in perspective, especially the fact that it's inattentive ADHD, which seems to also have this term called AuDHD, which is a combination of like autism and ADHD. And the thing is, I've been learning a lot, especially through TikTok, is the fact that I am different in the sense of like I always felt different and the learning about TikTok is like, oh, you're neurodivergent if you do this and do this, and I'm like, good 30 to 50% of those where I'm like, yeah, that is me, especially the ADHD part, especially when 2 years ago, my sister got diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm like, well, that does run in the family. There's a good chance I have it, but I'm different than her. In fact, I'm so different than that sister. When people meet me, who know me, meet my sister, the first thing they always tell me is your sister is the exact opposite of you, which, yeah, she's a very, very different person than me. I always felt that's one reason why we got along so well growing up, is because we were so different. You know how, like, people who are very similar and they're in the same space all the time can really clash, but we were so different. It just, I don't know, we got along really well. I guess sometimes that could be a problem too, but I don't know. Maybe it's um, how we were raised. But my other sister, I asked her permission to say this, but she got diagnosed with autism, and I'm kind of stealing her diagnosis because the other sister, when I started connecting with her about 10, 11, 12 years ago, she grew up far away for the most part, and like, she's 14 years younger than me. So, yeah, we didn't grow up together, but, saw her every once in a while, and she grew up like across the seas, so we didn't see each other a lot. But once we became adults, we started hanging out more. And one thing that always struck me is how much she reminds me of me. She's not exactly like me, but when you meet someone and you have like that automatic kinship, and there's something about this person that reminds me of, like, you feel comfortable, and I had that with her. And a lot of the ways she thought about things, a lot of the ways she processed things, a lot of the ways she saw the world were similar. I'm not saying she's exactly like me. We're very different people in many regards, but there's a lot of things where the Venn diagram, especially compared to my other sister, is closer together in like personality type and the way we joke and the way we can't process things, or how we even deal with our emotions, really. The interesting thing about this, especially when it really hit me listening to her talk about it, is all my friends growing up were kind of on the autistic side growing up. I always joked, especially when I read The Sociopath Next Door, that I was such a sensitive person that I grew up and all these sociopathic type people who didn't really know how to read emotions just wanted to become my friend because, I was so empathic growing up. And it turns out, learning some about that on TikTok and reading up about it, like having like extreme empathy is a sign of autism and justice and a lot of things that I have, especially bottom up programming. And the thing that's really interesting to me for sure is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. I always thought I just had social anxiety, extreme social anxiety growing up. But once I learned about rejection sensitivity dysphoria, a lot of things really just fit. It just really fit how my brain thinks. How, like, when I feel rejected, my mind just goes through it over and over and over again. And how it's really hard to let go. And I'm very sensitive to rejection. And it's always been something I felt that's kind of held me back in the past, especially since I always thought there was something wrong with me. There's something broken in me. And this thing I've learned, especially during my health path, of how to, I used to really worry about eating, and then I would overeat, and then tell me what a, gross pig I was, weak. And then I got to the point where just accepting that sometimes I overeat and that's just what I do, and just not making that a moral judgment about me, just something I do as a person. I've been looking at my brain and how it works the same way. I will have those social anxiety thoughts, but I also will have those rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria thoughts. They'll just go on. And when it happens, I just have to think, oh, my brain is processing through something. And I notice like a lot of times, especially something I don't really care about, in like a week or two, it just goes away to the point where, I tend to forget about it and tend to forget about people. I don't remember people. I don't remember faces. I'm very bad at it. And if I haven't seen you in a while, unless you've been on top of my mind, I just forget. When it comes to like connecting with people, I'm so bad at that. And a lot of times it takes me like 2 weeks from the thought to actually doing it, during both the forgetfulness part that comes with ADHD, but also just the like pushing part of the autism thing. And it's like one of the problems with it is just the way I would think about it in the past. My idea of autism was like Rain Man and things like that. People who can't deal with life in a certain way and has a good time. But in a way, yeah, I literally had many people tell me in my life they cannot read me. They can't read my face. That happens over and over again. And that's one thing that really clicked in my mind when I would look in the mirror and practice how to get my face to make the emotion I wanted it to convey. So I can do better my Toastmaster speeches, because I noticed when I was doing my Toastmaster speeches, my face would just do the same thing over and over again. It wouldn't really convey emotion or convey anything. And always something that's fascinated me is people who can just make, people with emotional faces. Just wow. My sister, that is the opposite of me, emotional. It's like she can't hide the emotions on her face. And it's just wild to me that people do that. And that's another thing, how I think of people and relationships kind of like an experiment. And I have modes that I turn on and turn off. I never thought of myself as someone who masks, especially, but I did that a lot in high school. But I mostly thought that was like a social anxiety thing, a fear thing, wanting to fit in and putting on masks. But that's just something with people with autism do, is they put on masks to fit in with the crowd that they're in. And now I kind of think of them as roles and plays to put in, to just act. And like one thing I'm really enjoying, I'm in my upper 40s, I'm almost 50, so I think it's really fun to act old, calling people precious and just saying old person things. I think that's a blast. I get to act old now. I get to turn on old mode. Just so many things just started really clicking. And I don't really see the need of being diagnosed, because I understand that's just how my brain works, unless I find a purpose for it, like for my job, or something. If they make us go back to the office, and if I get this diagnosis, I get to stay home or something like that. Because going to the office is just awful with the ADHD and like all the distractions and so much anxiety. Working from home has been amazing, but other than that, I just really can't think of a reason. And I understand how some people, especially talking to them, when I say that's how my brain works, I don't mean in the sense where it's like, that's how my brain works, I can't do anything about it. It's like, no, that's how my brain works. I work with my brain and allow it to process the way it takes, how I now understand my emotions like 2 to 3 days later after the event, and just work with it as it is instead of worrying about what it isn't. And maybe, if I get better and better at it, I'll just improve. The same way with my eating. Just accept the fact when I worked out that I was 470 pounds. I'm not going to be able to sprint. I'm not going to be able to twist. But as I continue to accept that reality and work out, I was able to get better and better and get better shape and do more things. And I'm hoping with, understanding, and the more I understand it, to be able to do the more things and just live a more effective life than I have been, with working with myself rather than against myself. And I'm hitting the 10-minute mark, which is the mark I give to all these videos. So hopefully you enjoyed this little rant of mine. I'm always fascinated with how my brain thinks. So anyways, love you for who you are. Thank you for all your support. And as always, you are worthy.